Hello, and welcome back. This is Jacob, and today we are going to be continuing the narration and character voice acting for the Path of Life story. Alright then, part 3, and oh boy, this is going to be quite the part. And I would also say, one more part after this and we're going to be done. And I better finish that, there's like 3 days remaining, so I do need to finish this. But yeah, today is quite the part ahead of us, so let's begin with the usual. First off, to anybody bumping into the voiceover through this episode, you can find the playlist for Path of Life and the other connected Abyssal Hunter stories in the description of the video, all in their both release and canonical order, so all of it is there. Plus you can find a separate set of playlists with the Seaborn stories and lore down there as well, if you just want to listen to those and learn a bit more, because all of it is obviously connected. So yeah, enjoy and thank you very much. And as always guys, thank you very much for all the likes and comments you leave on these episodes, much appreciated, really helping me out there. And speaking of on the previous part, I saw one that was, well, it was amusing, let's put it that way. The comment being from Mando, just casually asking, if we pitch, and I'm gonna pitch this to everybody right now, if we put Ulpianus, as he likes to whoosh whoosh away into the shadows, if we take Ulpianus and put him against Ascalon in a stealth match, who's gonna win? Who's gonna win? Or just extend that. Who's gonna win between Ulpianus and any of these stealth experts on board of Rhode Island? give me good answers. I'm just gonna say, with how much these two just disappear and then completely leave, well, Ulpianus just completely leaves the premises when he disappears. I think Ascalon is just gonna be waiting a long while until something happens, or both of them just gonna turn into skeletons 10 years later. But you never know. But yeah, anyway, with that done, thank you by the way for that comment, and the other ones as well, of course, as always. But yeah, with that, let's begin with the recap of the previous part, and as always, if you want to skip the recap, you can do so with the timestamp down below in the pinned comment in the comment section below. Alright, so on the previous part, we began our story with witnessing essentially what happened to the scientist Tulia that Secunda and Irene were looking for. Immediately from the get-go, we see that she pretty much got kinda tricked to fall down a drain and then pretty much got flushed out of the city. As the city was at the same time also moving, she got pretty much left behind out in the middle of nothing, and a Seaborn approaching her location. In the meanwhile, speaking of rather, Secunda and Irene, they were questioning Cassia and Lucilla about the whereabouts of Tulia, essentially collecting clues and hints about her location if possible, and were heading towards their next objective. Meanwhile, Clementia and Kal'tsit finally have a meeting, Clementia pretty much discovering how much of a well of knowledge good old Kal'tsit is about the predecessors and everything else, and the doc went out to find Ulpianus as the doc manages to pin Ulpianus down, exchanging a couple of words with him and offering Ulpianus essentially a hand in let's work together and help each other out to figure out what the hell is happening in the city. Our three Abyssal Hunters, in the meanwhile, are discussing their situation, basically Gladiia telling Skadi to remain behind with the doc and be a bodyguard essentially for the doc and a guide essentially in Miliarium, but also because there is still a bit of a risk for Skadi to be let out into the ocean because of the potential of the Ishar blood in her to go, well, rampant. But they also get spooked, essentially, as a Legion soldier runs into them, and they stop him to ask what is happening. They hear that the Armada, essentially the legions that were sent out to place beacons in the various nests for the Class 4 weapons to target, they have been intercepted by a huge swarm of Seaborn, and Gladiia and Specter decide to head out and do their due diligence. Irene and Secunda are also on their way out of the city with their own vehicle, as they are pursuing Tulia's whereabouts, and their last clue might be might be of significance, as it was telling them essentially that she might be somewhere out there in the middle of nowhere. In the meantime, Jordi and Avitus were having a brief moment of conversation in the Sophon Theatrum, as Jordi was essentially sharing his dilemmas essentially about who he is, who he thinks he should be, his connection to a certain someone from the past, aka Breogan, or maybe not even there being a connection between the two, but they are sharing in a moment there together. Skadi and Doc are essentially exploring the city and having a cute little moment, while our two Abyssal Hunters, who went out to help the fleet, run into, well, the remnants of the fleet. The entire fleet, except one ship somewhere out in the distance, is absolutely wrecked with no survivors. Somewhere close by, Secunda and Irene arrived at the very same spot where Tulia disappeared, but they only discover remnants of cells and tissue in the water floating around, bringing them to the conclusion that either A, Tulia ate Seaborn cells to survive out there, or that potentially a Seaborn might have ended her life. Meanwhile, the other two Abyssal Hunters reached the one and only ship that was essentially running distraction for the rest of the fleet. Not successful, sadly, as the rest of the fleet is destroyed, and that was the point. They were being pretty much just led around the nose, but they do manage to save this one ship with 26 survivors on board. The only thing that was left from the entire fleet that was out there. Later on, Gladiia meets up with Kal'tsit and Clementia and decides to participate in the Waterway Project fully, while in the meantime Irene and Jordi meet up, discussing more things about their current predicaments, but mostly Irene encouraging Jordi to do better, essentially. Lucilla meets up with Secunda once more, delivering one more piece to the puzzle to Tulia, as she remembered something very crucial about Tulia, as the two of them essentially met before they were in their new respectful positions. Later on, in the Abyssal Hunter, in one of the old Abyssal Hunter laboratories, Blandus is preparing the three Abyssal Hunters essentially for the procedure that will essentially restore a bit of the functions of their and recuperate a bit of their functions of that gene essentially that is keeping the Seaborn cells at bay. But the laboratory gets kind of raided by two cultists of the deep, which the three Abyssal Hunters spring into action to stop in their place. Meanwhile, Ulpianus runs into Secunda, but they do go their own ways, and the Abyssal Hunters go under the procedure, and it continues. However, Secunda, as she continues her search with Irene, lands at a place in the city where Tulia was essentially growing and cultivating the seaweeds that she was researching essentially, and they do find a Seaborn in there. And the Seaborn is still capable of some minor cognition and speech, and it is identified as Tulia herself. She is now fully transformed and slowly losing herself completely. But before that happens, before she completely transforms into a Seaborn and loses her sense of self, Secunda essentially does the merciful thing of putting her out of her misery before she completely loses her human side. Later on, we continue in the clinic as Secunda came by as well to check on things, but also the doctor comes around, and the doctor is essentially there to distract Blandus for a while, poking around the machinery and poking around the computers essentially and the security system to spot Ulpianus in another place of the building and essentially give him audio clues through the camera system to know which way to go and how to avoid the cameras. And that is where we left off. We left off on Mission Impossible Ulpianus, essentially. But yeah, anyway, let us proceed into today's part. So, of course, last time we left off on the first we stopped on the first half of stage 5, so we're gonna be continuing here from stage 5 once more. But first off, to just get it out of the way, let's do our new enemy. We have the multicellular herald, and it says highly differential seaborn with specialized tentacles that have proliferated across the ocean. Numbering in the billions, they are believed to shape the ocean currents when they weave their tentacles. Lovely. But for our purposes, let's continue on with the after section. Sea Patrol, here to interrogate me? Interrogate? Huh, I never thought I'd have anything to do with that word. You should have thought of that when you intruded on the lab. What about before then? What makes you and I so different? Why interrogate me? What have I done to deserve being questioned? At times like these, I feel like our methods are too gentle. According to our envoy from Iberia, they're more than happy to incorporate punishment into the process. So if you're finished talking nonsense, state your identity. I'm a former roadside coral breeder. Motive? You ever paid close attention to the coral by the road patroller? We hoped every cluster on every street would take on a different form of color, even different capabilities. Transport tubes pass through the cavity field cluster on the east side of the softened theatrum, and under the glimmering tubes the polyps glimmer back, a patchwork of dots of light. Like a nebula in miniature. Then there's the ones around the port. As it happens, I have been paying close attention to some roadside coral recently, specifically the ones growing in your experimental field, where an innocent data scientist died. Her dreams, her obsessions, her love for seaweeds were as beautiful as the coral you speak of. But you murdered her. You asked a good question earlier. What makes you and her so different? So why are you still alive? What did she do to deserve death? She found... Found what? Speak up. Or are you implying I should be asking Cassia this question? You, What is the church planning against the Waterway program? Will you be attacking the beacon or the weapons? Speak! Church this, cultist that. I'm still not used to being called names like that. You sure they're not just convenient excuses for you to arrest people? The so-called church and its cultists, what part of them is holy exactly? I don't worship any kind of imaginary entity, I just agree with how Cassia sees things. From the despair engulfing Aegir, she can see this nation's fragile nature. People place too much importance on the value of things, but are unwilling to recognize how fickle these values really are. They become worshippers at their altar. But now those values are crumbling away. Before Aegir falls completely into despair, someone must sound the alarm. Perry! You're just trying to loosen my lips. You won't get another word out of me. If you're feeling impatient, go ahead, scan my brainwaves. You won't get anything out of that either. Questioning you is the last respect I'll give you as a human being, scumbag. Maybe you believe yourself innocent, and your actions free of conspiracy, but you will tell me everything I want to know. Now speak! Captain, it's almost time for us to leave, Skadi. I know it's urgent. The front line is barely holding ground against the Seaborn. The loss of 2 entire fleets is really hitting us hard now. According to the most recent missive, Legions 8 and 10 failed to regroup into formation, and they are now mired in a bitter struggle. If the beacon cannot be deployed at the designated position within the nest, and the deadlock continues, it will mean the failure of the Waterway program. Understood. The Legion fleets are about to launch an offensive across the entire front, at all costs, all to attract the Seaborn's attention. As for us, squeeze through the battlefield, infiltrate the nest, and deploy the beacon. Correct. How would you rate your current condition, Skadi? I got some good sleep, at least. My first dreamless sleep since our last campaign. The situation in the city is getting more restive. Do you know where the doctor has gone? I know you want me to keep the peace and protect the doctor, Captain. You want me to stay? To be honest, I'm conflicted. Cleansing the sea of its drags is our duty, but I'm also responsible for your safety. Have there been any signs of Ishar Mla stirring since we returned to sea? If it has, it's been real quiet. If it speaks up, I'll shut it up. Actually, I've got something to say to you, Captain. We've never been this cautious in our work before. We had our ways of handling this sort of thing. If the Church's God, the one the scum call Ishar Mla, really is inside me, then if I ever go out of control, I want you to execute me on the spot. Simple as that. My heart's right here. I trust you won't miss. Skadi. I'm not finished. If your sharks start to fall under their influence in battle before I do, I won't hesitate either. What I was going to say is that, with war close at hand, I can imagine nothing more reassuring to hear. Let's go. Miss Laurentina. No need for a dreary honorific, little bird. We're not strangers, are we? Laurentina. Considering how long we've been in the city, I'm surprised this is the first time we've run into one another. This is sad. I've always wanted to take our brave little warrior out on a real hunt in the depths. Sadly, the nest we're headed to is too far and too deep. No way to bring you along. It's alright. Even if I had the option, I'd stay in Miliarium regardless. Oh. There's been a lot happening in the city lately. The first time I wore deep water equipment and entered the ocean, I was immediately knocked about by the current. I hate to admit it, but I'd be dead weight out there. No need to talk like that. The first time is always rough. Anyway, I can do a lot more in the city than in that nest. And once you've completed your mission and Aegir's weapons systems start cleansing the area, I'll have to return to St. Carmen and make an urgent report on why the sea surface has changed. Ah, so you mean we were to be parted once more? That's right. I'd be offering you all farewell gifts, but I wasn't expecting this before we left for Miliarium, so I have nothing to give. Don't worry about it. We'll meet again. While we won't be needing to drag you from the sea half drowned this time, I have a feeling our next reunion will be unforgettable in its own right. Look, Skadi and Gladiia are coming. Take care of yourself, Laurentina. Finish with your chat? Yes. It's past time we left, hunters. Doctor. Seems you got the evidence you wanted. Yes, you've been of great assistance. So, what's the verdict? As previously mentioned, there are unusual data interactions between the beacon within the city and the ones deployed in the nests. It seems the bulk of the work was handled by Lab C-22, namely the facility we just infiltrated. While I do not fully understand the principles behind the beacon system or the Class 4 weapons, The contents of these interactions can still be inferred. The coordination between the beacons and the weapons has been altered. As is surmised, the Waterway program has been infiltrated at the highest level. As you surmised, did you doubt the program from the start? Correct. Even before it was conceived, I had my doubts about Aegir. From where? That decisive campaign. You were meant to kill the Firstborn, but you lost contact with your team. Skadi was left to take the burden. So you already know. Skadi trusts you more than expected. I put it together from what she said. She's not sure what happened herself. My dereliction was due to a moment of distraction. In a cave, or rather a cavity closest to Isharmla's core, I noticed something that should not be there. Crude piles of meat, turbid mucus. At first, I assumed they were nodules of its body, but then I saw clearly the measuring scales and flow channels around them. A corroded water flow meter. One from Aegir, a design hundreds of years old, one that now exists only in museums. Hundreds of years old? Based on the degradation, it had sat within Isharmla's body for 2 centuries. But I had been told that no other Aegir had ever managed to reach the Firstborn before us. That is to say, before Aegir was even aware of it, its people had secretly come into contact with the Firstborn. The undercurrents beneath tranquil Aegir are more turbulent than anyone could imagine. I also found something odd while you were out. As soon as the hunters awoke, they left. They're being used to break the deadlock at the front. I can imagine the mission they have been assigned. Bypass the front lines, advance to the nest, and deploy the beacon. First support, now the linchpin? It's too quick. The advisor seemed more anxious than them. He left the lab at the first opportunity. Blandus. Then I fear we too must act as quickly as possible. If the coordination between the beacons and the weapons has been tampered with, then there is only one place to go. The core of the Waterway program. The beacon launcher. As for you... I'll go see the one who gave the order. Consul Clementia. Alright, well... Ulpianus definitely found some interesting things, and also told the doctor finally the full story behind what happened in the past in the mission to take out Isharmla. Very interesting stuff. So that was one of the things that was never revealed, essentially, about what the hell happened to him, because he essentially disappeared in the middle of the mission. And there we go. He was distracted. He was on a mission to save Hyrule, but suddenly he went, "Ooh, what's that over there?" But yeah, anyway, jokes aside, he definitely found something interesting there, which will, as we'll see, will lead to something interesting down the line. But before we get to that, can we just talk about that little moment between Irene and Specter? That was adorable as fuck. Also makes me question, are we shipping her with the right person? I know, actually no, never mind, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, she is being heavily shipped with either one or the other. Is she just... She has 2 of them. Let's be real here, she has both. She has all the fish. She has all the fish. Irene is in the middle of fish, she's enjoying her fish harem. I don't think she... I don't think she minds who it is. As long as it's a fish. Anyway, very cute. Very, very, very cute. Anyway, we continue on to stage number 6, titled Anathema of Aegir. And it says, what Aegir represents has never been justice, but the dignity of humanity. So then, let's see what that is about.
What a stench. All these years and they still won't make better camouflage cream. It wouldn't do any harm for us to at least smell different from the Seaborn, you know. Don't move so much, Shark. It'll only make the smell stronger. When you smell this much like a Seaborn, I might hack at you on instinct. The whole plateau is trembling. Those giant worm-like Seaborn are tunneling through the rock beneath us. Stay concealed.
The vacuoles on the Seaborn lightly tremble, and their cores shudder fiercely.
Look at those numbers. Honestly, between the currents and the Seaborn, who's carrying who? They're flooding towards the front line. I can't imagine what the soldiers there are fighting through. Snap out of it, Skadi. You'll crush your hilt doing that. We mourn those on the front best by completing our mission. Thanks to the Legion's fleets containing the Seaborn swarm, we are able to slip in and plant this beacon deep in the nest. Even a single plant could alert the Seaborn to us, if it happens to be assimilated. There is no room for negligence on our path forward. The great bleached coral will cover us as we dive for the depths of the rift. Yes, Captain.
Jordi, right? Fast learner. A lot of students come here on work experience. With all the operation protocol, it never takes more than a day for them to slip up. You, though, picked it up just by watching for a little while. You done this before?
Just a bit. I've done some work in an Iberian lighthouse. The beacons share a few principles with it, here and there.
I see, so you're into engineering. Explains a lot.
I've worked longest as a caregiver, though.
Caregiver? What kind of job's that?
Watching over the sick and elderly, taking care of their daily needs, sorting out all the little things for them.
Gotcha, so it's like slapping little handy modules 153 and 274 in at the same time.
But the little handy is impersonal, right?
That's correct. You look taut as a wire, Jordi. This is an exam on Aegir general knowledge.
I just want to ask, if the little handy has no personality, how is it supposed to meet the emotional needs of its patients? To care for people is to meet them in their weakest, most vulnerable moments, after all.
I'd say physical frailty doesn't particularly inspire emotional needs in us, and if we're headed for the grave, even with illness, we don't feel especially vulnerable either. We do let the old and sick request some final company before their euthanasia, though. Usually a leading philosopher will come in, scholars from whatever field in general, really.
I know nothing about philosophy. I just talk to them about the most banal things. Food, flowers, sunshine, and so on. But for some reason, they are always so happy to listen.
You're a great guy, Jordi. That shows how keen you are at grasping people's moods. No promises, but something tells me you'd shine in the Institute of Development Planning or Institute of Incubation too.
Could I? Regardless, thank you so much. I finished resetting the storage facilities here.
Wonderful work. Now about... Wait, did you just see something zip past the hologram?
What?
Intruder!
You?
Young man, you saw none of this. You have no reason to complicate things. Wait! Shark Saw will be too loud. Skadi, you open the way. Cut through this cluster as quickly as you can.
Alright.
For but an instant, the invading hunters are bathed in vivid color and indistinct light. That which the Iberians call Nethersea brand creeps across the coral layers, the spawn of the many lilting in their craggy nests. Eggs are swept from the cliff face as the currents pass, metamorphosing as they spiral down, indescribable folds yet unfolding until a seaborn form emerges. The soft membranes on them stir, and their creased skin shudders. The newborn silently gather together, their trembling bodies echoing all throughout the nest. Intertwining palms and feelers, they sweep each other off for far away.
They just keep on leaving the nest, rushing for the front line. Wait, don't you think something's off? How did that one turn into a whole bunch out of nowhere? What is it doing? Multiplying? Splitting? I've had this gnawing feeling ever since we bailed out the fleet. Swordfish, have these assholes evolved even more?
The Seaborn are forever evolving.
Skadi, can you remember the first Seaborn you ever killed? Not really, just that it had a lot of gross tentacles. That's what I mean. Tentacles, stingers, chitinous shells. We could still discern the organs, identify their functions at a glance.
Prior to this, the Seaborn's only skill was to hijack whatever evolutionary progress other species had accrued over the epochs.
But now we've got these things. I can't begin to tell what their organs are. If I didn't know better, I might not even think to connect them to the fodder we were slaughtering just 3 months ago.
The Seaborn's needs have outgrown the evolutionary advancements. They've begun seeking their own answers. Which means their evolutionary course now transcends our knowledge. If we are unable to gloss their physical composition, unable to discern their organs' unique functions, unable to predict the direction they will evolve,
we won't know how to kill them. We could fetch a specimen for Advisor Blandus while we evacuate.
Still, the mission takes priority for now. Skadi, you and I will find where the wall hasn't yet been branded, embed the beacon there, and activate it. Lavratina, spot our surroundings. We withdraw as soon as it's planted, without delay. Consul Clementia.
Greetings, Doctor of Rhode Island, and well met in Miliarium. At long last, our first official conversation.
Well, Kal'tsit's the official Iberian envoy.
Save your modesty. Dr. Kal'tsit's awe-inspiring knowledge transcends the boundaries of space and time. So for her to be keeping you up her sleeve, the depths you hide must be deeper still. Whether you come to me in doubt or with conclusions of your own to share, I am prepared to listen.
You sent the hunters into a literal nest of danger.
Much like Dr. Kal'tsit, you have misgivings about this decision. Yet I had no choice but to order them to meet death in the eye once more. My hand was forced. Only they can break our present impasse.
Rational? Maybe a little too rational?
The legions are deployed to capacity. The Abyssal Hunters must assume combat duties, even having recently returned to Aegir. You suspect the situation was deliberately engineered. I gather you returned from the city with findings of your own.
The beacon weapon link was tampered with.
Little handy. Priority order. Contact the supervisors for the beacon and Class 4 weapons R&D. And notify all Legion commanders. Leave enough of your fleets at the front to curb the Seaborn and assist the hunters. The rest should withdraw in order to return to the city. The Sea Patrol will seize the beacon tower right away. You have our gratitude for informing us, Doctor. I know I owe the two of you an explanation for how I have deployed the Abyssal Hunters. We don't hold you accountable on a tactical level. You know their prowess against the Seaborn better than us. I can only say this. Your powers of observation would not have missed the scales on Gladia's neck. We can assume the hunters will have no trouble seeing this assignment through, but what was your guarantee they would be spared from mutating while in the nest? The word of Advisor Blandus and nothing more? Advisor Blandus' statement at the tribunal served to strengthen Miliarium's confidence in the Abyssal Hunters. I confess, though, it failed to even ease my mind. I take it the hunters will weigh heavily on your thoughts. Aegir never truly wound down the Abyssal Hunter project following the strike on the Firstborn. I've not been involved, but my countrymen have every right to interrogate me for my awareness of it alone. For a short time after the Firstborn died, the project went through major upheavals. Anomalies plagued the experiments, and the Church grew only more fixated on the Hunters. This suggests there are urgent hidden truths about the Hunters yet to be found, yet it also proves that the project can no longer run publicly. To this day, it still operates in secret, but even now Aegir has only 3 Hunters including Gladiia. No, 4. For how constantly we iterate on our technology, we have never succeeded in making another Abyssal Hunter. No matter how stable the subject signs and psychological indicators are, they lose their reason the moment they awaken, immediately corrupting into Seaborn. They don't even make it out of the chamber, let alone into the ocean.
Abyssal Hunters are bound by blood. We forgot. What is this blood binding them?
We don't know. We still don't know why Gladia's group have kept their reason intact.
Sounds like they're your key to solving this. Yet you chose to send them to the front.
Indeed. For Gladiia, Laurentina, Skadi and all the participants, it was an irresponsible act. But the front lies at Miliarium now. We made it in time to cut off the Seaborn tides as it laps at dry land, but Miliarium is far from impregnable. If we fail to open the waterway now, it is only a matter of time before the city is lost. The Seaborn have organized to seize that waterway by the throat. Storming them head-on will invite a large-scale counterattack, at which point I fear none will survive.
Is risking the hunters a necessary cost here?
The hunters may well give their lives, they may well transform, but right now, they are our greatest hope.
Gladiia has always been skeptical of the Waterway program's feasibility. It was for that exact reason that she did not hesitate to serve as a link in its chain. Your doubts and struggles may differ, but all roads lead to the same place in the end. That seems to be an unspoken yet shared understanding among the Aegir.
One not without its sorrows. Upon the bricks of the Sophon Theatrum entrance, the architect Martus left this maxim: "There is no justice here, only the path ahead." In later generations, some criticized Martus as being overly fixated on material value, squandering his energy on comparing worth against worth. But ultimately, all that mattered to him was Aegir's path forward. Justice was merely a value cherished by the masses, and he preferred to apply his thought elsewhere. Perhaps Gladiia and I have been acting on his philosophy without realizing it. Dr. Kal'tsit, everything you have said rings all too true. I am bound in the end to carry Aegir's arrogance with me, and nothing will change that.
I would like to amend that wording. Arrogance, as a word, seems insufficient to describe Aegir. You respect equally the humanity of your every citizen. To realize each individual's worth is the guiding star for your entire society's development. Yet at the same time, you are capable of making the cruelest judgments and calmly accepting them for the sake of Aegir's survival as a whole.
Calmly, you say? We Aegir are not cold-blooded. Whenever you would feel warmth, our own hearts are far from unstirring. These are feelings I had wished to convey to Gladiia once upon a time, but I realized I had no right to. Every decision I made for her, I based on pure rationality. How natural then that I lost that right. How dare I ask for an emotional pardon? The same is true even now. And so calmly I accept my own judgment.
The designated individual has been contacted. Advisor Blandus did not pick up.
Dr. Kal'tsit, Doctor, I am deeply sorry I could not give you an appropriate answer. But right now, I ask that you permit me to carry out my duty.
Flashback. Awake? I've taken care of your wounds. You'll find 2 doses of stimulant beside you to bring you back to your senses. Shall I administer, or would you prefer the little Andy? Fine, do it yourself. Very practiced motions. It seems you've recuperated well. Now, useless as I know it is, I do need to tell you this. You cannot keep experimenting on yourself, or you'll have to cover your eyes as well to avoid looking like you've been tortured. The mask won't be enough, at least. My wardrobe has nothing to do with my modifications. True, you've always looked that way. We all got shivers as you entered the classroom and set your gloomy self down. All this time we've known each other, and you barely even show me your face. Blandus, given you've started cracking jokes, I take it the results are less than awful. Now, that's tricky to say. The emotional ride I've been through felt like being seated next to Secunda as she sailed a patrol ship with both eyes shut. That is to say, utter madness. First of all, I noticed a baffling effect in your auto-adaptive junction. Your body's reaction is bizarre. When the Seaborn genes exert their abnormal dominance, your anti-Seaborn rejection response doesn't intensify. No, it actually lightens somewhat. Which means my transformation is getting faster. No, quite the opposite. It was right as I was cancelling the surgery that I observed a curious phenomena. Once your rejection ebbed, your Seaborn genetics slowed down their influence. As if, to be crude, your body and the Seaborn genes had reached some sort of understanding. This is certainly worth further study, but for now I need to know one thing. Will this impact the Hunters in their upcoming battle? Slaying the Firstborn will be our single most important operation since we were created. At this point, I will allow no freak accidents. I've observed no negative effects so far. I'll be setting up a few more risks assessments before you head out. That said, if we're going to figure out what's underpinning this phenomena, then you'd best you come back alive so I have something to study it all. I'll be honest, I'm anxious. We've never waged a war on this scale before. We're marching every single Abyssal Hunter plus 3 whole standing legions off into a single trench. If not with a war like this, how would we ever kill their Genesizoic, their source, their god? Do you truly believe we can polish off the Seaborn just like that, once and for all? You've worked with us for over a decade, and you still have doubts about the Hunter Project. Do you want the truth? The truth is, I should have vetoed this project at the audit stage, a roadmap to warping evolution, predicated on sacrificing our own people's humanity. If not for you, I wouldn't have even entertained its feasibility, let alone poured 10 years of my own blood and sweat into it. But it's a sunk cost now. The more I adopt it, the more crucial it is for me, be its core member, to steer it with my own two hands. Yet I can't shake the thought of how many monsters this lab's created. The majority of which were put down by your own two hands, Ulpianus. Yes. Their deaths don't even qualify as sacrifices to you, do they? A homeland ravaged by Seaborn will only wrest away even more Aegir lives. We've had this debate 1,000 times. We don't need another before I leave. Get the risk assessment going. Furthermore, suspend all ongoing hunter modification trials. Come again? With no hunters present, it will be difficult to deal with any aberrant results. Aberrant? Ulpianus, you've been the director of the ABYSSAL Hunter Project for its entire lifespan, and even you can't be fully confident in it, can you? That's the real reason you chose to be the first subject. Can this campaign put the Seaborn crisis to rest? Yes or no? Even you can't be sure. Blandus. No, Ulpianus, I've spent each and every day hoping more than anyone that this will end in victory. Maybe, when you sail back, safe and sound, the project will have no more reason to exist. Think, we could even pick up where we left off on all our old research. You barely even remember, do you? Well, I ran into our own teacher at the council. He asked about that dream of ours. The evolution of Aegir cells. It made for no particularly grand abstract, but glimpsing the whole course we've run from a microscopic cross-section. That's a beautiful pursuit, and no one can tell me otherwise. From our ancestors swaying their limbs in the rivers eons ago, to us here and now as we debate science and ideals, there's a flow to it all, an order of events. It's not too late for us to witness it, is it? And a flashback. You finally came, Ulpianus. You won't even resort to flaunting your wretched sense of humor as a plea. Wretched sense of humor. Secunda would agree with you. You know, she's really grown to resemble you over the years. I fear we'll have another you on our hands someday. Along with the countless other yous born by or against their will, throwing themselves into the fight against the Seaborn and perishing in combat, until the shores are soaked in Aegir's blood. It grieves me how she's changed. The changes in you, though, I can barely begin to comprehend. Stop what you're doing right now, and explain your game to me. Blandus, cultist of the deep. You're late. I've hardly anything for you to stop now. Just a moment ago, my holochart received a signal from Nest 37. The final beacon is activated, and the Class 4 weapons are warming up. You're not putting this one down, Ulpianus. And if you hope to learn what the Church is planning, I can't help you. They were tripping over themselves to protect me out of their own wishful thinking, and then one day they just went and changed their minds. If not for their actions, I know I might have been caught long ago. No, though, I've never counted myself among their members. I can't even make heads or tails of their warp doctrine. Still, if you're asking me what drove me to all this, I would love to bend your ear. Excellent. Then I won't need to resort to violence. Violence. Still taking that as your first impulse. If it weren't for the embarrassing situation you've put yourself in, I'm sure the Institute of Development Planning would love to have a chat with you. Want to know something? It took only moments after the failed campaign for them to declare you all dead. Then soon after, the Institute came down to me with an invitation to restore the Hunter Project. You haven't seen the casualty report for that campaign yet, have you? You should have a read. Abyssal hunters, legionnaires, their sacrifice is a tragedy, yet the ending a farce. Violent resistance was always a dead end. The project was dead in the water from the start. Granted, Aegirs never used crude platitudes or propaganda to encourage such sacrifice. Every one of the project's subjects was given the freedom to make an informed decision. But using the sacrifice of our citizens as a market standard, well, that makes the very question of free choice much ado about nothing. Once an Aegir's were flaying all that they had built up and created during their life, and now our very lives, even our deaths, are price tagged. I will record your words, even though it's pointless. Blandus, I expected your suspicion and dissent to drive you to search deeper, not reduce you to the cowardly, self-deceiving man you are now. Whether out of passion or mourning, it's still the same brand of rhetoric spouted by every fallen claiming to foresee the fall of Aegir itself. Assigning a character to a nation, anthropomorphizing it to critique its values, even as a method of inflating one's ego, it's shoddy at best. But even as you weep over the senseless sacrifice, have you never imagined how many lives your destruction of the Waterway program will take? Destruction? No, Ulpianus, I'm trying to open a true path for us. What have you done? Now, Ulpianus, be patient. I have nothing to hide. Blandus brushes past Ulpianus and stops before the holochart. With his back to his old friend, he passes a finger over the sea of glowing dots and points to a flashing spot in the top right corner. See that? That's where the hunters are right now. They activated the last beacon and are probably caught in a deadly struggle, but they aren't in any danger. Any true danger, that is. The moment they can fight no more, that's when the weapons kick in. The Seaborn will cease fighting. Every last one, thronging one of them, will fall asleep. Keep going. If you remember your auto-adaptive junction tech, you'll have no trouble understanding what I tell you next. The dull surgical accident I had. Well, you were right. It was absolutely worth the further study. The junction brought about a homeostasis in you on the microscopic level. Your body no longer rejected the Seaborn genes, and they miraculously stopped overtaking you. It may have been by chance, but in no time at all, I was able to reproduce your phenomena on the macro scale. To an extent, I could delete the hostility Seaborn bore towards humankind. And before Gladiia's unit left for Nest 37, during their surgery, I took the opportunity to reproduce that accident of yours. You wanted to recreate in the hunters an accident with no proven explanation, no clear effects, and not even a trace of actual rigorous verification? No. What happened in your body has long since graduated from freak accident. While you were missing, I spent every waking moment on the research. I trusted you hunters were still alive. Trusted you would come back, and that I could help you be free of that blasted fate of yours. But you refused to restart the Abyssal Hunter project. How did you? Were you experimenting on yourself? No wonder your body stinks of miasma. My physical condition doesn't hold a candle to yours, naturally. I haven't much longer now. I can practically feel each second of my life slipping away. But it was worth it. I've done all I needed to. Tell me, Ulpianus, that the hunters were born to be a solution. Not a tool, not a weapon, not a consumable destined to be tossed aside. They were. Good. Then the project was a failure, but the hunters still have a chance to fulfill their calling. yet not through senseless slaughter and sacrifice. You live to show your worth, not die to Aegir a few more final gasps. The Abyssal Hunters will be the start of a revised relationship between humanity and the Seaborn. If I can have them mistake humanity as their own, then maybe I can get the many to see Aegir as a neighbor. And you had your eyes on the Waterway program all along. More precisely, the Waterway program came to me first. Clementia reached out to me and practically the same time as the Institute. She let me in on both the game plan for the Waterway program and the research project for the Class 4 weapon array. Weapons rooted in biotech like them can impact Seaborn behavior at large. The theory grounding them has a natural affinity with the auto-adaptive junctions. By then, I'd already gathered the data I needed to perform the junction tech, to the point that it was no longer limited to human subjects anymore. So I made a tiny little tweak to the class force. The instant they activate, we can close the book on our fight with the Seaborn. The Abyssal Hunters, the class force, it'll all transcend the boundary of species. It'll become a path, a bridge. You can't make this up. 2 centuries of constant war between Aegir and the Seaborn, and one little trick is likely all it takes to stop it. Maybe the severity of this war was a fiction from the very beginning. Now I mean no offense to our predecessors, but at least we still have the power to choose a different path. Not that I'll get to see it. The rest is out of my hands. At least I was lucky enough, in the end, to see you at the Sophan Theatrum. You're the one who started the Hunter Project. You know your way around self-adaptive junctions. You've been through all this. Only you, Ulpianus. Only you can keep the work going. Is that why you were so blatantly waiting for my arrival, to entrust your work to me before you die? It's my turn to invite you. Aegir and the Seaborn have a chance to achieve true symbiosis. Perhaps that's a future you wouldn't mind bearing witness to. I refuse. I did not expect that, but still, that was a little too blunt. I'll be honest, this is the control room where I'll die, but... Blandus, even if your death is certain, you must know, you have no right to go regretting anything, fighting anything. There was a time, not so long ago, when we ventured to make sense of the meaning of our existence by studying how our own Aegirian cells had evolved. But you've ruined everything you had with your own hands, all for one wild flight of fancy. The Seaborn are noxious scourges upon the ocean. There is no point in doubting that. They are beings full of unknowns, yet you believe in symbiosis with them, as if they are your friends. Blandus, that is the same arrogance the Aegir had in assuming victory was inevitable. No, this is that 100 times over. Are you even aware of what you're thinking? Can you describe this hopeful vision you see in your fantasies of symbiosis? Are the Seaborn to be magical seafloor fairies spoken of in children's stories, or will they be our beloved household pets? Will Gladiia debate philosophy with them? Will Skadi take tea time with them? Will Laurentina be dancing with them? You can't paint even a single proper picture, can you? Your own proven record, as the scientist you were, thrown away. When I see you now, Blandus, I can only laugh. I've never heard you say so much in one breath, Ulpianus. You mean to tell me you despair, yes? The only one who ever despaired was you. So you have no right to go regretting anything, fighting anything. Not in front of me. Every fallen must be sentenced, and their every corpse should be hung from the dry reefs. Is it even in you to sentence me? The campaign to slay the Firstborn was full of questionable points, and you stand as the greatest suspect. Everything you've done now puts you at odds with Aegir. This nation has rejected you. And so I have no choice but to take on your noble work. The man I knew would never have given this conman's rhetoric. I'm simply stating the facts. Then in this moment, the last I will ever spend as an Aegir, I sentence you. Blandus says nothing back. Perhaps he's lost the energy, or given up on retorting. This dialogue of monologues has dragged on long enough, to the point it's begun to wear on him. The golden hollow chart ripples before him. Too bright, he thinks, and so he closes his eyes. From somewhere, a communication intrudes and shatters the brief silence. With it, he hears the shrill grinding of his old friend's anchor being dragged across the floor. But only one thought makes it in time. He couldn't even give the hunters a welcome home hug. Oh well then. So yeah, Blandus was one of the oh, not like he said, not a cultist, but he was definitely for the fish. He was for a synergy. He was essentially for that one Mass Effect 3 ending, but with fish, not with synthetics. So yeah, that is the choice he made, and so did Ulpianus make a choice there, and that is it. That is it for our good old Blandus. Which, by the way, I've looked up, I don't think I've mentioned it before, but I've looked up the name Blandus, if it translates from something into something, and it is a word in Latin, and it translates to gentle. Definitely describes the man. Definitely is fitting for the man. I have nothing else to say there. Outside of the fact that, once again, I have given the smoky old voice, or the raspy old voice, could be both are kind of similar, to the one who dies in a story. I said this before, but the voice is cursed. That voice is cursed. Like, there's always gonna be someone I give the voice to. And I guess at this point it's a 70-30 flip towards this person will either die or live. Oh boy. The chances are great a character with that voice will die in a story. Yay! Why am I so accurate? But yeah, anyway, before we move on, we have one new enemy to add here, which is a very sad one actually, called the Abandoned. It says their consciousness is almost gone. Every nerve strand cries out soundlessly. Free. Pain. And yeah, if you look closely at this guy, it's essentially a legionnaire turned Seaborn. Still, the armor is still on, just the whole body is, well, transformed into that of a Seaborn. Oh boy. Great fish zombies. But yeah, anyway, we move on to BPST-2, titled Backflow Current. The children of the sea proliferate through the city. They will not permit any place in the sea that does not belong to the sea. That's a lot of the word sea there. Let's go. Senor Ulpianus? You. So it is you, okay. We met once at Gran Faro. Actually, it was you who approached me, though I never learned your name until after I got here. Please, you're not supposed to be here. It's a control center for the beacon tower. That man on the floor. Did you do that? It's the most fitting end for one who fell. What did he do? None of your business, young one. Leave this place, for your own safety. The nest beacons have all been activated. The sabotaged weapons are warming up. How else can I warn the hunters? Is Laurentina's group in danger? Did this man do it? Is that why you... You won't tell me. You don't trust me? Well, I don't trust you either, honestly. You never introduced yourself, and seeing all this, it's really only right to suspect you. But they're your friends. You're a hunter too. I think I know a little about your tales together. He did his dirty work on them before they left. They're still caught in the Seaborn tide for now. I'm not entirely certain what's going to happen, but the danger is definite. If they went to plant the beacon and are still in the nest, maybe we could send their beacon a signal from this tower to warn them. I was helping out here earlier. I know roughly how the basic controls work. Then do it. Okay. Well, it's much more complex in practice, but I can say this tower seems to operate on a very similar framework to a lighthouse's control system. As far as I'm aware, Brogan passed through the city and aided the tower reconstruction effort. The technician mentioned that the tower will automatically navigate the weapons once every beacon is active, and all other controls will be locked out by the program. So if we want to send a signal to one of those beacons... Let me see... just as I feared, it's impossible to resume control. Do you have any other way to circumvent the lockdown? If Brogan was involved in the reconstruction, then maybe, just maybe, I have a very stupid plan. My entire time here in Miliarium, I've been trying to get to understand the man Brogan was. He had a habit of writing things down, always noting his thoughts, his suspicions, etc. He kept it up even on dry land. Was it so he wouldn't forget things? I think I can try temporarily shutting down the main control panel's data decomposition system, like this. Before you were bringing up my history. You called me Brogan's descendant, but just from looking at his images, you can tell I don't resemble the genius architect one bit. My parents were just Aegirs rooted to the land. There are plenty of us across Iberia and the other terrestrial countries. Strictly speaking, we don't even count as... So what? It used to trouble me, but recently I've been learning to let myself get over it, to not think so hard about it. It's just, you were the first to ever mention that to me, so I wanted to be sure. What did you think I was? True, I did miss the mark, but I never engaged in baseless speculation. There is more of a bond between you than you think. A bond? The profound silence ruined Iberia. The lighthouses felt dark along the coast, and doubt and suspicion grew in their shadow. Brogan was forced to flee the splendor he himself had designed. Gran Faro was one place he sheltered while he was on the run. The research notes your parents left you are undoubtedly connected to him. They were people he knew he could entrust his life's work to. Look at what you're doing now, young one. You may not be his descendant by blood, but you have most certainly inherited a portion of his wisdom. Miliarium is the first Aegirian city you visited, and coincidentally, the last Brogan stopped at before leaving the country entirely. His trail covers the entire seabed, and everywhere he went he visited those of great repute, to share his thoughts on dry land, his conjectures on Terra's future. He had hoped someone would head for the continent with him, so that one day land and sea might stand against crisis together, seek new possibilities together. Many admired him for his talent, but perhaps his suggestions were too ahead of his time, for in the end hardly any responded to his invitation. In Miliarium, he even volunteered to take part in this tower's reconstruction, in exchange for an audience with the then consul. And, do you need to ask, he was rejected. But as the work finished, he made the final decision to wrap up his mining tour and officially depart for the faraway soil. Even if his time on the road had gained him practically no support. Think over what you've done. You left the town you knew and came to this alien place they call your home. That too took incredible courage. In this respect, you and Brogan are not dissimilar. Conversely, if all you'd shared was just blood, then that would have been something to be ashamed of. I do not usually play psychological counselor, Jordi Fontana Rosa. I think really that did it. At the very least, signaling a single beacon shouldn't be an issue. Let's see, Nest 37. I hope Laurentina and her friends notice. Actually, Senor Ulpianus, is it just me or is the air getting, stuffy?
My comms just picked up a faint gravitational wave. What a strange feeling, seeing the ripples in space-time with my own eyes. Just like in the manual, seems the beacon's already active. According to Clementia, this beacon going live should mean the Class 4 weapon array will automatically come online. We should head back the way we came, immediately. Oh, and here I was thinking we'd stay behind and enjoy our front row seats. What's so fun about watching cannons fire? Oh, were we supposed to have something rather different in store? I thought we'd see the Seaborn silently popping all at once across the entire stretch. How poetic, how fitting, when you consider all the little bastards' wrongs, no? Though Class 4 weaponry may not affect us, pointless dithering will only invite more variables. Fine, off we go then.
Evacuola merrily whirls. A soft murmur reaches Specter's ear, and when she turns to look, she meets with an eye, more accurately a nucleus, leaping to and fro. The flagella of the Seaborn sticks to her cheek, soft as a kiss. Specter sees the nucleus pulsing in a clear rhythm, blending with her own heartbeat. Shark! Don't attack yet, Skadi. It went straight past us?
Doesn't strike me that we spooked it, more like something pulled it away.
The beacon.
Captain? The gravitational waves coming from this thing aren't supposed to be so irregular, are they?
Skadi, behind you! Move! The vacuola on the Seaborn merrily whirls. Their soft membranes cheerily stir, and their creased skin excitedly shudders. The currents reverse. The tide sweeping the Seaborn surges back into the nest, the sound of beating membranous wings, of compressing and unfolding, of clamoring mouth parts, of roaring streams. The whole space reverberates with layer upon layer of cries, of pure elation.
The beacon's been completely drowned out. The eggs and newborns are multiplying rapidly. Clementia said all formless newborns would enter straight into necrosis, and the mature individuals would flee from the area. While the fungal met the vegetation, the whole nest would decay, starting from the environment. But clearly, we're not seeing much of a collective necrosis here, are we? If anything, I'd say they're full of life.
Pull back! Gladiia turns the instant she barks the order. Her lance pierces the Seaborn ahead as ruptured tissues bursts about like blood.
Ever since that little bastard touched my face, I've been feeling sleepy somehow. How very strange. It's been so long since I felt this way. I thought it was just me.
There shouldn't be. Combat only sharpens the Abyssal Hunter's lucidity. Blandus?
You mean the auto-adaptive junction surgery?
We discovered an anomaly, and Blandus certainly treated us, but he also tampered with the procedure. Yet, whether coincidence or not, the Church's attack cleared our suspicions of him. This was my mistake.
But he's the advisor. Why would he?
If we want answers, we must make it back to the city. Specter skips ahead at the vanguard, her dance as graceful as ever. With but a twirl, a high RPM saw blade leaves the Seaborn ahead carved in two. Their vacuole excitedly swell. The beasts have noticed us, and yet show hardly any will to attack.
Captain, Shark, have you noticed the water flowing slower? Get a hold of yourself, Skadi.
No, wait. She's right. These animals are secreting something. Finally, the tide receding, the nest temporarily bears the truth of its transformation. Seaborn, living and dead, fall into every ravine in the seabed. The nest's borders have begun to bleach, chitin coming together into a thick crust. Something has provided them immense nutrition. The whole nest is forming a carapace and spurring every life within to evolve faster. A shell. If you take the Iberian so-called Narrated brand as the roadmap for the organism's expansion, then this shell is the final act of fueling before it begins. Without warning, the beacons pulsed irregular gravitational waves. Right afterward, the Seaborn swarm began to nest around it. Either this is some elusive aberration in the weapons themselves, or someone in the city is trying to remote control the beacon to transmit information, or possibly both. Whatever Blandus did to us during surgery has dulled our senses. Consider the hunt on. Time is of the essence. Get out of here. Your cheeks are flushed, and your clothes soaked through with sweat.
I'm not nervous.
No. You're accustomed to dry, arid land. You're more sensitive to dampness than an average Aegir. The humidity is wrecking you.
Hold on. Look at the chart. Densely packed biosignatures from right above us?
It's the dome above the tower. The Seaborn are seeping into the city through there. No, but weren't there 2 legions out there keeping them at bay? Plus the hunters! Even if someone from the net slipped from the perimeter, Miliarium still has countless sensor units across the dome, and all sorts of complex defenses. How could the Seaborn get into the city without a sound? Did this tower draw them in? But why? My guess is someone showed them the path. Blandus, had it ever dawned on you that your folly would lead to such disaster? Ulpianus is pensive. He does not return to look at the culprit of all this, lying motionless on the floor. He stares closely at the holographic sea chart. Dots representing the Seaborn swarm converge right on Miliarium's coordinates. They shine like the stars. Well, all hell is breaking loose. Jordi lent a helping hand there, but they be coming. They be coming. Blandus has prepared the terrain and they be coming now. So yeah, the guy successfully manipulated the devices. The Seaborn are going out of control and they are seeping in through the goddamn roof of the city, through the very tip of the spire that is connected to the dome. So yay. What a shit show. Well, this can only end in one way, right? He got his way, I guess. Anyway, we move on to stage number 7. Titled From History. And so the forefather passed into history, from whence came the Seaborn, and for the first time his teachings were understood. Well, let's see about that. There are always chimes like little bells resounding from the dome, the result of countless tentacle-shaped biomonitors analyzing the most minute changes in the ocean current. Occasional dull roars echo faintly from the port, as warships coming to and from the harbor gracefully displace vast amounts of seawater, like gigantic fins. The goods flying through aerial optic cables in squeeze state to every household emit a near subsonic buzzing. These myriad noises, varied yet not chaotic, have become the ambience of Miliarium, long since faded into the background for its 10,000 or so residents. But now all those residents stop in their paces. They wonder if their ears are deceiving them. At first, it was like a wisp of wind sweeping across an angular reef. Then, like a newborn who tentatively poked its head out of the warm womb. And after that, a colony, a nest, an entire region of sea. The thick, bizarre sound of blooming of life could be heard clearly. The children of the sea now give back to the ocean. They give civilization a kiss, and civilization is now filled to the brim with life. Look! The usual tower looming over the city center is gone, replaced by an enormous stone column, the type seen only in karst caves in the sea. Layer upon layer of fine, porous, slimy, and smooth seaborn tissue encircle the walls of the beacon tower. Yet light from the equipment within still permeates, casting an ethereally enchanting glow over its surroundings. Microbial colonies float down from the column, blossoming into oddly shaped lifeforms. If it weren't for these statues, I can just barely make it out. I'd have thought these were untouched wilds.
Nest conversion.
Why would there be Seaborn in the city? I know we haven't...
Doesn't matter if we did or not, as long as the results are as expected. I just hope it's a lesson those ever-seeking Aegir will never forget.
What do we do now?
We keep it growing and stop the city from pushing it back. Was murdering Tulia not enough? Do you need to destroy the entire city to state your appetite for chaos? At first I was planning to tail you back to your allies and save myself some effort. But since it's an emergency, I'll have to haul my net in now. You will be the 33rd and 34th Church of the Deep's cultists caught by the Sea Patrol this month.
The Sea Patrol?
You've harmed a lot of our brothers and sisters lately. Clinging to the current order will do you no good. What Aegir needs isn't a struggle for its life and despair, it's... Shut up, I'm not here to debate.
Prefecta Secunda, an unusual concentration of biosignatures has been detected. They've tripled in number in a short time. It seems the Seaborn have fully converted the tower into their nest, and are now steadily producing more of themselves.
We cannot allow them to spread to the other city units. The nearby civilians have already started evacuating by themselves. Take a squad and guide them to the emergency shelters. Remember to clear the road of all support machines. If the Seaborn contaminate them, they could be used as weapons against us. The rest of you, get information and deploy barriers. Keep the Seaborn within the perimeter of the beacon tower.
Yes, ma'am!
I was sure the Class 4 weapons had already been activated. Don't tell me. I'm listening. Lock down all Class 4 weapons immediately. I want a thorough inspection of the entire system as soon as possible. All troops who have fallen back, regroup at the port immediately. From now on, all combatants are to remain on standby on the channel.
This isn't quite what you described. I'm guessing this isn't part of the plan?
Look at this real-time nautical chart. Just an hour ago, seaborne biosignatures were generally stable. But now, every nest on the continent shelf is getting closer and closer to each other. No, it's not that the nests are moving. They're expanding endlessly. Like countless drops of ink spreading across a sheet of paper. This entire stretch of sea is turning into a nest. The scattered nests are linking together as one, with Miliarium in the middle. Did Aegir really bring weapons to disperse them, Madam Council, or a mass of catalysts? Are you annihilating them, or feeding them? If Blandus tempered with the link between the beacons and the weapons, it must have been him who altered their effect as well. And as a result...
Aegir's hopes of landfall have been exploited. The city is now a foothold for seaborne expansion.
As the Waterway program's chief designer of warfare, I will take full responsibility for this, but we haven't lost the battle quite yet. Look outside, not a hint of disturbance on the streets. Miliarium has not yet sunk into panic. We've struggled against the Seaborn for more than 200 years. We've experienced countless incidents like this. It's far too early to declare Miliarium lost to the enemy. Dr. Kal'tsit, Doctor, you must leave the city at once. I'll escort you to the port.
I had assumed the consul would need to remain at her post.
As things stand, the port is the heart of the city. A key military installation we cannot afford to lose. The Seaborn have already invaded my city. You think I'll wait for our uninvited guests to knock at the Pensivarium's door?
The air's getting more humid the further we go. I can barely breathe. Watch your step. Use your device to float over. Don't step on that. Another sea brand? Indeed. Yet another means for the Seaborn to extend their reach. They've already spread from the top of the tower to here, much faster than you'd see on land.
The Seaborn are nesting in the city?
Above our very heads.
You said there was someone directing them. Why? How?
This is the work of the dead man Blandus. He spent the last 5 years on this. According to his farcical plans, the signals emitted by this tower would, along with the weapons we brought, become a bridge connecting humanity and the Seaborn. He has indeed built a bridge of sorts, but the Seaborn have not reciprocated his ambitious goodwill. Our connection has only served to alert the beasts to Miliarium's position, and given them an understanding of our defense mechanisms. The legions had taken great pains to divide this stretch of sea into manageable regions, but with the nests now converging on the signal, they are whole once more. The Class 4 weapons that should have destroyed the nests and repelled the Seaborn have done the exact opposite. Seaborn tissues grow along their firing paths. What should have withered was instead nourished. Even until death, he never realized his own arrogance.
Senor Ulpianus, I don't quite understand what you're saying, but right now
The Seaborn already consider this tower a new nest. It will steadily spawn and attract more from the nests to gather here.
Can we reverse the change?
It's too late. We have only one option. Eject the city unit the beacon tower stands on.
Eject? But underwater cities aren't built in blocks. How would you...
There is still much you do not understand about Aegir. Unlike the nomadic cities of the land, pieced together from cumbersome plates, Aegir technology focuses on the biological, especially when it comes to city construction. Biting off a poisoned limb is an instinctual reaction in a sea beast, nothing difficult. We must keep the remainder of the city, for it still has use. Otherwise, the Seaborn in the area will eventually unite into one, and no one would ever be able to stop them then.
They'll come ashore without a hint of resistance. They'll land in Iberia. What do we have to do exactly?
A massive yet precise framework supports each city unit in Miliarium. The operation system controlling the linkage of the tower's unit should be in this control center. Once activated, it will send the entire tower into the depths.
Is this it? I can operate it, but there's no response. It doesn't seem like there's any issue with the system, so it must be the linkage itself.
The Institute of Facility Management has specialists dedicated to the maintenance of the framework. It is less likely to malfunction than a hunter's weapon is to rust. And yet here we are, precisely at a time like this.
Reading error occurred, too. Run fall diagnostics. Do you need my help, Mr. Avitus? Oh no, I was merely observing this abandoned little handy. Could he know something about this?
Huh?
I might know who to look for.
Contact the Aegir soldiers outside. They'll help you exit this place.
Are you going to stay here, alone?
You still have doubts about me, young one. Good. But someone needs to stay in this control center. Once the tower completes its conversion, Miliarium will be unable to eject it, even if we manage to repair the linkage. A sea beast cannot spit out its heart when the heart is no longer its own. I must remain to confirm that the framework has resumed operation, then eject the tower myself.
But if you do that, you'll sink along with it into the hordes of Seaborn.
You needn't worry about that. Or do you mean to say you're more suited for that duty? You don't have much time, young one.
You have already... Isn't this the frequency of the beacon tower? Secunda, Sea Patrol. Who's inside the tower? Then, what about Blandus?
He's dead.
The two of us were in contact, but I never noticed anything unusual. I should submit myself to the Council for Discipline once this is settled.
Miliarium must abandon the tower. I must see it sink into the abyss with my own eyes.
And after that? Will you return to Aegir? Can you return to Aegir?
I told you not to ask pointless questions, Secunda. You should not allow the past to render you indecisive.
You're overthinking things. Blandus told me what happened back then. As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter which of you rejected my application. Though I'm willing to admit that I regret not becoming a hunter and fighting alongside you all deeply. I'll admit that I felt anger and resentment for a long time. I even envied Skadi. But eventually I became accustomed to patrol work. For your sake. For the sake of the project keeping our home, our civilization, safe.
Staying outside of a specific project will allow you to see more sacrifices, more betrayals, more untrustworthy people, more things deviating from their paths.
Like you right now?
Have you thought through what you should bear?
If you truly did betray Aegir, if you really are associated with the scum, then you're in the tower now to plan your escape. I'd bear the guilt of allowing a fallen Aegir to flee. If you're still a hunter, then you'll be fighting alone. However, it's already impossible to wipe your slate clean after infiltrating the city, breaking into the tower, not to mention the outcome of the tribunal. Aegir may not remember your sacrifice, just like how Tulia will inevitably be forgotten. But I agree, ejecting the tower is the most effective way to help Militarium respond to this disaster. I approve of your choice. I'll afford you some limited amount of trust.
Very well.
You have 5 minutes. After that, I'll come rescue that land dweller in the tower. The entire city is following the emergency transportation coordination plan. We'll enter the axial channel via the Southern Theatrum and leave for the port. I will remain there to direct operations while the Sea Patrol takes command of this ship and sees you to dry land. The drone matrix will also head to the lighthouse and assist Iberia in mounting a defense. Should the city not organize an evacuation of its citizens as well? Militarium is a military fortress. It is able to accommodate its citizens during battle. All civilians have already been escorted to shelter by the Sea Patrol.
Those neural cables by your hand, should they be twitching like that?
No, with communications down, my connection to the ship's operating system has also been cut off. I'm losing control. Little handy, run diagnostics on the entire ship. The system's breach is more serious than I expected. We might not have enough time to land. I'm sorry. At least the city's artificial gravity is still functional. The devices you have will help you move freely through the air. Now follow me. No need to be scared. All you have to do is walk out the door. Comms are still down. Looks like someone managed to cut off the entire Southern Theatrum from the outside. Monster!
The monster spreads its ebon talons as a wave of heat washes over you. At nearly the same time, the consul draws her ceremonial sword and steps to the side to cover you and Kal'tsit. You take a good look at the enemy before you. An unusual shaped Seaborn bars your way. It seems to lack hostility. Before monsters roar startle it, it simply stood there, quietly, its featureless face illuminated by the coral-shaped terminal in the middle of the softened theatrum. The granule organelles surrounding its body spread out like arms, stroking the branches of the terminal and fusing with the flowing characters and symbols on it. Was it observing, sensing? Can it even comprehend human perception and reasoning? It turns towards you.
Seaborn. Is it the one that breached the terminal? This is unprecedented, and not a good sign.
There is no justice here, only the path ahead.
A Seaborn trespassing in an Aegirian city, reciting an ancient proverb in a sanctum designed by sages past. This might be the most iconic scene I've witnessed since I joined this war. Uncouth, even for a provocation. Its use of language and its manner of speaking are unlike the usual outcome of the Seaborn's forced learning. I fear the Seaborn was once human, Madam Consul.
Language. Never have I forgotten it. Never has it abandoned me.
What about your thoughts? Do you actually comprehend yourself when you clumsily mimic the sayings of the wise?
Comprehend? No. I do not understand their true meaning, even as I left them for posterity. Now I have a new understanding.
Left for posterity? Martus? You're Martus? The key member of the 4th observation team of the Mantle Ruins, the scholar of anthropology and prehistoric civilization who went missing more than 2 centuries ago. That Martus?
In my most distant memories, I was once known by that name. But now, you need only be cognizant of my appearance. You see before you a Seaborn. Call me as such. Seaborn.
The Seaborn floats towards you. Through its transparent skull, you see strangely colored orbs gathered and disperse, steadily changing their formation.
Aegir, allow me to converse with the one behind you. Glub, tell your little friend to stow its fangs. Its flames cannot burn my body. Ama 10.
Who are you? Why did you call Kal'tsit that? You know who Kal'tsit is?
Stay vigilant, Dr. Jacob. I'll speak with it.
Kal'tsit. Kal'tsit. I see now. If you're accustomed to that name, I can call you by that. I have waited for you, Kal'tsit, for the two of you, for a very long time. Long have you walked the land, Kal'tsit. The changes in the sky would not have escaped your attention.
The Seaborn raises its head slightly, gazing up with its non-existent eyes, perhaps a habit from the time it still had them. Above the dome, beyond the infinite water, something in the distance seems to have caught its attention.
Tell me, how long will it take for the hole to close again?
I see. Aegir was right. The Seaborn had a clear reason for leaving the ocean and invading the land. You came because you noticed the change in the barrier.
I have seen through the eyes of we many who have ventured on land. There is a ripple in the sky. The immutable veil has been torn open.
Your survival instincts have driven you to monitor every change in the environment and the dangers they signify.
Dangers? Yes. You are indeed sharp, Kal'tsit. Your program runs smoothly. Our communication will be effective. The calamity that hangs above Terra, the eye that gazes upon us, does it see the abnormality in the sky, or has it already? You understand Terra, Kal'tsit, and the crisis it faces. You can, you must, help we many understand, help we many evolve.
Am I hearing this correctly, Kal'tsit?
I sincerely hope this is the Seaborn's wishful thinking rather than some kind of consensus you have, Dr. Kal'tsit.
Let it finish, Madam Consul.
The last chance is fleeting. The oceans of Terra are too small. Knowledge, nourishment, space. We many must grow. We many require help.
You're not just trying to go on land, you want to go into space?
Growing wings is not difficult, but insufficient. Going beyond the skies requires a revolution in the species' fundamental nature. You have the knowledge, Kal'tsit. You help we many understand, and we overcome calamity.
Whatever their origin, the Seaborn are non-sapient creatures driven by instinct, ones that the church fanatics have placed their unreasonable expectations on. But you know far more than either of those two groups possibly could. How?
We are the same, Kal'tsit. You and we many have the same duty.
Perhaps I should reframe the question. How did the Seaborn evolve into what they are today? What do you have to do with Karula Arbor going out of control?
Is the answer important to you? I can speak of my own history, if it helps you understand my intention.
We've waited 2 centuries for these answers. What really happened in that failed expedition? What turned you into what you are now?
Failed? No. It was a success beyond our wildest dreams. We penetrated the deepest layer of the mental ruins for the first time. The predecessors carved open the rock and built massive, maze-like complexes reaching into the lower mantle. We'd never gone further than them, even after thousands of years of excavating. The mental ruins, the genesis of Aegir civilization. We thought we'd find more relics, more secrets, more answers there. But all we had hoped for did not exist. All that was buried in those depths was a spark of hope.
Go on.
I was separated from my team along the way. I was the only one to make it to the end of the path. There I saw. A giant. Some massive thing sleeping in the shadow of the Carulian tree. I did not see his entirety. A small part of his limb was enough to fill my entire vision. That limb was touching the transparent wall of a sealed chamber. Perhaps he was waiting for contact. Or perhaps... Before I realized it, I was standing before him and reaching out. The wall of the chamber was cold, but I could feel his warmth. Then visions surged towards me from every direction, inundating me.
A Faramud shared its vision with you. What did you see?
Fallen cities under an oppressively hanging dome, the land aflame, the stargate extinguished, the star ring broken, the road network shattered.
The destruction of prehistoric civilization?
Yes. Aegir never discovered the reason for its destruction, but I saw a vision of it before my eyes. Yet it was not the end. Visions continued to flow, visions far beyond my limited comprehension. Eternally dispersing particles and oceans of sand that never ripple. Cold, lightless plains and darkness without end. Burnt out stars and ever-expanding black holes. Nothing there was familiar. I lost my senses, all of them, and even the Faramut that shared vision with me could not sense his own existence. It was an entirely alien place, without life, meaning, or information.
The Seaborn's words stop. Through its transparent skull, you can see the strangely colored nuclei gather, then disperse. It seems to be thinking, and the nuclei represent the process of his thoughts.
But you, Kal'tsit, understand the meaning of those images.
The crisis destroyed everything. It cannot be visualized. There is no word in our language to describe it.
It was the end of prehistoric civilization, and the calamity that Terra must face. It is the end of all things. The horrifying images left me as I pulled my hand back, replaced by another image, one that was broken, blurred, chaotic. He and his children shall devour all that is living, and consume the moons and the stars. All that is living and dead shall nourish him, and he shall murmur at the end of time. Survive. Over and over. Survive.
Chaotic. Murmur. Was the Faramut asleep?
He was trapped within a dream. The dream stagnated. Evolution stagnated. Duty stagnated. He was trapped in the Carulian cave. Therefore, I must awaken him.
Cassia! Magister Avitus. Did you and your comrades go into hiding in order to destroy the city from within? Waiting for when the Sea Patrol's guards was at its weakest? You should be evacuating, Magister. The Sea Patrol has noticed Cassia. They're investigating you. You're showing this much concern for me because the tiny embryo I left in the incubator reminded you of the past. Am I right? I'm just curious. Do you regret your decision? Now is not the time for this. The Seaborn have invaded Miliarium. Stop what you're doing or the city will be lost. Isn't it a little late for that? Why did you... choose to betray Aegir? I told you. The Seaborn have revealed the weakness of Aegir's very foundation. Before people can regain the will to live, the collapse of their values will have crushed them already. Once you were a great scholar, but what are you doing in the city now? You found out about me a long time ago, didn't you? You had many chances to stop things from getting to this point. You could have reported me to the Sea Patrol at any time. But you did nothing. You sat and waited, watching everything happen like a blind fin spinning in a whirlpool. Did you come to Miliarium just to witness the destruction and validate your own despair? I'm not... I can still stop you. As long as life remains tied to any value system, it is doomed to eventually collapse. Life itself should be reason enough to live. We must rekindle our most basic survival instincts and force people to reassess the values they once held in such high regard. Only by doing so can they be saved from despair, from becoming like you. Like me. Watch out!
Cassia got away. The linkage here was sabotaged. No wonder it didn't work from the control room. Leave this to me, ma'am. The Seaborn are approaching. My mentor at the Inquisition taught me some arts, although my talents are nothing to write home about. That woman worked at the Institute of Facility Management. She'd known how to sabotage the city unit framework. I appreciate her courage, Jordi. I'll call in people to get this area under control. As for Cassia, she's mine. Oh, whoa! Already? Are you going to keep lying there, Mr. Avitus?
His student had vanished. Avitus gazes upon the young man who suddenly appeared before him. The fear in Jordi's eyes is obvious, but he lights his lantern with a trembling hand.
Jordi, I heard your conversation. You're not an evil man, but I'm disappointed in you. Very disappointed. Did you come here with the city because you believed it wouldn't make it back? What are you hoping for? Death? You should have returned to land sooner, Jordi. Look around us. The Seaborn will soon overcome the barrier between the city's units. It will all come down to an end just like... You never answer my questions properly. I may end up leaving Aegir and leaving behind all my hopes and longings, but it won't be because it's about to be destroyed. I've read The Depth of Life, you know, but it didn't answer any of my questions. Let's say all your predictions come true, and that at some point in the future we'll have no choice but to watch our homes come to an end. It depicts just like that man in the book. But does the destruction of a civilization really weigh more than that of a city, a family, or a person here and now? I don't understand. I just don't. I wasn't sure if I should say this, but you said your loved one gave up on the idea of raising a child and died in disappointment. But was she disappointed in the future of Aegir, or in you?
The young Aegir musters all his strength. The lantern shakes violently, and the flickering light repels the Seaborn. He gasps for air. Sweat rolls down his cheeks. Avitus can see his arm tremble, but if anything, it is himself who casts a sorrier figure.
Look out!
You have smeared your bodies on the other wall, infiltrating through the trail of weapon fire before reshaping. What a convenient form of life. Seaborn.
The Seaborn joyfully convulses its gelatinous body and excitedly sways its fine tentacles.
You here. Nest we seen. From nest you leave. Incomprehension. Ulpianus kin. You here. Wait us. Ulpianus. Ulpianus. No confusion.
It lets out a pain convulsion.
No needs pain. Individual death eternal. The many survival eternal. Ulpianus, I lead you. New individual born for you. Help you. Extend me.
Gladiia. Ulpianus. There is no expression on Gladia's face. She holds her lance sideways, its point touching the floor. An almost imperceptible posture, enough to mitigate the fatigue that continues to rush up from within her, and to support her as she stands before her long-absent colleague. Your friend is now a pool of goo, but you still need to answer its question. Flashback.
Such rowdiness. This is really poor dance etiquette, you know. Dance is an art. It's all about elegance. You can't make it work with strength of numbers.
What? That didn't pierce it? This used to be a cluster of coral changed by the Seaborn, but now it's a wall. No one knows how thick it is. The warning from the city, the unusual movement of the Seaborn, the results of the abnormal surgery. We must get out of here and find out what's happening at Miliarium.
The entrance is gone?
No, it's us. We're losing our sense of direction.
Capsidization. Everything around us is hardening. The algae blanket, the unhatched eggs, even the waves. This entire nest will become a hardened shell for these creatures to store their nutrients. A shell without a single crack. There is no way the three of us can. Even worse, the stagnation environment is exacerbating our exhaustion.
Captain Gladiia? Shark? Behind you. The Seaborn hums gently.
You.
Nest become whole. Soon the sea. You kin no harm. We many accept you. We many protect you. Here much nutrient. Sleep. Only sleep.
The lethargy, which had heretofore been suppressed by the fighting, begins to spread through every limb and organ. The thick and hard shell solidifies the waves. All is stagnant. The hunters vaguely sense their consciousness sinking. As though there is no bottom, the hunters hears the song. Coming from right beside them. Coming from inside them.
Sharmla. The hardship we suffer is ever present. The life we thirst for is ever present.
Over there, Skadi.
Roaring.
The faint roar comes from above. The thundering roar comes from outside. The stagnant seawater flows again. The infinite ocean could be bound by a cocoon. Then from where comes the force that can break even the cocoon? Land, moon, the scent of wheat, home, far away. The force has become legend. It has shattered mountains, death, time, all that is tangible and intangible. He will not be bound.
You, many alike. From where? The waves, you built them. You hardened them. Are you turning this to land? Will not allow. Contradiction. Wilderness, mountains, rivers, wheat fields. Land is just land. I seek, I reproach, I crush.
The one who was with Ulpianus.
Oh, a pleasure to see you again, Sir Knight.
You.
Not kin.
The Seaborn agitatedly twitches soft tentacles and excitedly flaps its creased fins.
Out of the way!
Donna Irene!
I've been looking for you.
Sorry,
Received Council Clementia's message. Dr. Kal'tsit's group is headed to the port, but then we lost communications again. We must return to the Eye of Aegir immediately, inform Lord Carmen, and help the Inquisition and the Penal Battalion form defense lines.
No, we have to wait.
Why?
Most of the invading Seaborn are still under control near the beacon tower. If that unit can be ejected, then Miliarium is not yet lost. It can even organize a counterattack. But the cultists have sabotaged the linkage to prevent it from being jettisoned.
The Sea Patrol is already cleaning up the Seaborn in the area. We can't let these slip away either. I'll deal with them. As for whether this linkage is your talking about, will your engineering skills help?
Yes. I can fix it.
Good. You take the lead on that. I'll protect you and ABYSSAL. We can return to land as soon as we're done. We work together at the Eye of Iberia. Let's pray we do just as well this time. But these Seaborn from the depths are different from the ones I've dealt with on land. I don't know how long I can hold them off.
We've said all that needs to be said, Mr. ABYSSAL. Come and help, if you still have the strength. Alright.
Hurry, Jordi!
Hurry, Jordi Fontana Rossa. You warned us through the beacon, and the strange knight who appeared at the lighthouse broke through the shell just as we were about to fall asleep. Is he part of your plan too, Ulpianus? The madman who's forgotten himself is an enemy of the sea, of everything abnormal that has become normal, and of himself. No one can control someone like that. We just happen to travel together. Are you the only one to make it back?
They're on their way.
Breaking through the nest's shell and returning through the tides of Seaborn. Your speed was remarkable, but you're too late. We've seen what's happening to Miliarium. The many have exploited Aegir, and Miliarium will be the stepping stone for their invasion of the land.
And what precisely is happening here?
The first thing I heard when I arrived at the port is that the Abyssal Hunter, Ulpianus, has entered the control room of the beacon tower and killed the weapons technology advisor of the Waterway program. And indeed, Blandus' body is right behind you. You're quiet. I assumed you'd feel more anguish over him. I take it you've figured him out, then, judging by your reaction. I doubt we have time to discuss a fallen traitor, even if he was once our closest comrade. That young man really did it. The linkage has been repaired. You're trying to eject the beacon tower from Miliarium. A wise plan. It seems there's still hope for you. This place will sink to the ocean floor in a few minutes. Do you smell it? The stench of frenzy. The Seaborn above have noticed the change to the tower. They're seizing the last opportunity to break the blockade and reach the other parts of Miliarium. Leave Gladiia. Now. Come back to Aegir, Ulpianus. This is your last chance. I still have things to clear up. If I give up now, all my efforts will have been for naught. The dreams and the end of the prehistoric civilization, where the Seaborn came from, where they will go, the calamity before our eyes, the destruction beyond the skies. Being aware of them is not enough to turn the tides. I must learn more. If the Seaborn have memories, I must know every last detail of them.
I'm not disputing that. We're back in the ocean, back in Aegir. We'll have many chances to approach the truth.
That is your way, and I don't disapprove. But we need more approaches, more angles, in order to maximize our odds of victory. As you've said,
I'm on another path now. Will you still try to stop me?
Unless my eyes deceived me, the Seaborn I just killed had evolved specifically for you. That doesn't just mean they are trying to accept you, it means that you also...
Correct.
Then you know well what being inside a rapidly hatching nest would mean for you in your present state. Answer me, Aegir. How much of your mind is still your own? Is there even enough left for you to choose death?
It's the only way for me to earn the trust of these scum.
You're an outstanding hunter and a learned scientist. Are you really so arrogant as to believe you can control your transformation through willpower alone? Accidents like the one during the auto-adaptive junction surgery will not happen every time. I can't simply watch you walk down the path of destruction.
You're at your limit. We're both experts in violence. You'll die if we fought here and now.
Is that so?
Her lance draws a cold arc through the air. Ulpianus lets loose the chains, and his massive anchor flies at Gladiia, forcing her to leap up. The sound of the building sinking drowns out the clash of metal. Seawater and Seaborn rush into the control room. In the last moments, Gladiia watches her erstwhile colleague stand before the darkened holographic sea chart, calmly waiting for the colorful waves to swallow him.
Your description raises many questions. The feasibility of modifying a Faramut into a biological ark by leveraging its habit of fostering an independent ecosystem inside its body had already been verified on Talos. The technology used by the project was mature, and their complex was deep in the mantle. Energy coming from the heart of the planet could support the facility's operation for almost an eternity. The project had more than sufficient power supply. Why then did the project deep beneath the ocean stagnate, as you put it, and go out of control, releasing innumerable Seaborn?
The existence of Faramut was introverted by nature, yet he was to turn all things to nourishment for his survival. He was given meaning that did not belong to him, and a name that did not belong to him. Ishar Law. The changes they were put to were bolder, wilder, more ambitious, and more despairing. Their nature had long since exceeded the biological arc you speak of. For unknown reasons, however, their subsequent actions did not follow the program.
Meaning that the project did not proceed along the planned lines, but the new direction was also interrupted?
Not entirely. They continued to foster new offspring within themselves. But the lives trapped within the Faramut were weak. They evolved too slowly. The new generation needed to be liberated. They needed to leave the Faramut's body, adapt to new environments, and obtain more nutrition. More nutrition to be fed back to the Faramut, so that his evolution may be accelerated.
Under normal circumstances, the organisms nurtured within the Faramut are rarely able to venture beyond its body, yet the aggression the Seaborn have demonstrated outside. The modifications these Faramuts have undergone were indeed transformative. So it was you, Martus, who brought the Seaborn into the ocean and sowed the seeds of calamity?
Seeds of calamity? No, the offspring were weak, and Aegir was strong. The seabed was governed by a self-regulating ecosystem. Offspring that devoured the algae fields would be discovered and destroyed before they could proliferate. But Aegir should not have been an obstacle. Aegir should have provided aid. Fortunately, my influence in human society was still useful.
The Institute of Development Planning had already announced the death of the members of the 4th Observation Team of the mental ruins at the time. You came back from the dead just to corrupt your countrymen?
I hold no forums, no debates, only a few sincere conversations. I helped some discover the problem, and some discover the answer. It was enough that they were willing to give the Seaborn an opportunity. We many will find a way out eventually.
The ecological disaster, the fallen cities, the citizens lost. How many of those were you responsible for? Was it you who congealed Blandus and the cultists behind him to infiltrate the Waterway program and alter our weapon systems?
The nuclei within its skulls spin.
This so-called Church of the Deep is not a formal organization, at least not in the sea. It needs no guidance, no leader.
Not an organization. You mean you manipulated the people's thoughts and behaviors only using their faith and tenets? How did you implant the ethereal concept of God into them when such absurd ideas were completely absent in Aegir?
Civilization could never truly purge the idea of primal worship. It awaits at the end of science, ready to be awakened at a moment's notice. The Aegir you call cultists do not know the truth. Each of them acts according to their own thoughts and ideals. Each faces their own questions and dilemmas. Selfishness and altruism, flaws and perfection, nature and civilization, logic and unreason, the difference in strength and the shackles of form, the limitations of ethics and the future of humanity, a manufactured truth and the beautiful cycle.
You deceived your followers. It was all a scam from the get-go? The nuclei within its skulls spin.
A scam? No. Primal worship originates from the survival instinct. Every threat thought by every cultist ultimately leads to a single question: how to survive better? Faith, tenets. No, only a desire for survival. You struggle for survival too, do you not?
When you preached survival in Aegir, did you ever tell them whose survival you were talking about?
The survival of life itself. Just as the survival of civilization inevitably involves the destruction of many more, the survival of life inevitably involves the end of many. Many species have gone extinct due to the activity of the offspring while they gathered nutrients for the Pharaoh. I once recorded the number only to forget it. For the moment Isharmla awakened, it had become a meaningless, insignificant number. The birth cries of the newborn, interwoven with the wailing of the dying. Songs brought silence.
You knew the consequences of awakening the firstborn from the very beginning. A disaster for the entire ocean, for countless species, but you show no remorse whatsoever. You even gave up on recording the number of sacrifices. Was it because you'd gone numb after taking so many lives? But numbness is no excuse for your crimes, Martus.
The consul steps forward. Her ceremonial sword is elegant, but the light reflecting off it is chilling, cutting off the sightline of the Seaborn gazing towards you. Clementia, Madam Consul.
The Sophon Theatrum. You designed the building that inspired so many of our people, myself included. But you stand here now, calmly explaining how you pushed Aegir into the abyss. I've seen images of you, a gentle, meditative observer who has the habit of constantly pushing his large glasses back up his nose. Look at you now. Even the richest of thoughts can only be expressed by the simplest movements of your cells. You still have your glasses on your neck. Is it to reminisce about old friends who you have no right to reminisce, or to mock the dead who you have no right to mock? If you are martyrs to Aegir, then I hereby pass judgment upon the fallen. If you are merely Seaborn, then we'll skip the formalities.
The organelles surrounding the Seaborn expand and parry Clementia's attack. The ceremonial sword cuts into the shadow of the coral-shaped terminal.
You cut off my control to the terminal?
Monster breathes scorching fire and howls furiously. Emergency transmission. This is the 10th attempt. The Seaborn have taken over the beacon tower. We cannot stop the conversion, but someone has activated the ejection protocol for that unit. Good job, whoever you are. Biosignatures keep soaring in number. The nests are becoming one. Incoming Seaborn tide. Scope is the entire continental shelf. Repeat, incoming Seaborn tide. Scope is the entire continental shelf. Emergency transmission. This is the 11th attempt.
This is Consul Clementia. Citizens of Miliarium, heed me. Once city unit containing the beacon tower has been fully ejected, the rest of the city shall embark through the Seaborn encirclement and move towards dry land. Reactivating the linkage mechanism in the city's framework and perform structural reorganization. Force fields at full power will stop the Seaborn tide from setting a single tentacle on land. Legions 8 and 10, along with the Sea Patrol, send all operational warships out in turn to escort the city. May Aegir and our forefathers be with you.
You are looking for an opportunity this whole time, Consul of Aegir. You're tough. We too once.
Is it Aegir or the Seaborn who are trying to open up a waterway? The readings are off the charts. The endless Seaborn tide is approaching us at the very moment. This is beyond the lighthouse's computational capacity. Su Santidad.
I hear you. Look in front of you. Those deep colors between the sea and the sky are a tide of Seaborn. The wind grows quiet. There is no point in trying to estimate their numbers and the scope now. Experience is better than data. I've seen the ocean like this before.
Do you mean the profound silence?
Leave the rest to the Peanut Battalion and the Inquisitors.
Report! 2 divisions are ready for action. Aegirian drone matrices are helping us fine-tune our defenses.
Aegir.
Sir, the ocean. Something's rising from it. Is that an Aegirian city? Having sailed for thousands of miles, Miliarium rises to the surface of the ocean after casting out its heart.
Every inch of it is being reformed, supported by a framework. An invisible force field extends toward the bottom of the sea and the highest reaches of the sky, forming a structure like a great wall. The structure breaks the surface of the ocean, creating a giant wave of 100 meters tall. However, on the other side of the city, the real tide has arrived. It is a living wave, seaborn of various forms have fused with the ocean. The children of the sea are the sea itself. They have even changed the color of the water. The city from the depths and the roiling tide stretch out at the same time, colliding, embracing, and ripping at each other's throats. Nature never tires, yet civilization will not stop its footsteps. All is quiet. No wind dares to tell of what it sees here and now.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack here. So, in all due order, first let's get the one new unit out of the way here, which is the Nucleic Maleficent. And it says, a cell originally meant to develop into a specialized organ has mutated into an individual entity capable of metabolizing body waste into neurotoxin. How lovely! Its role within the Seaborn population remains unclear. Well, it's a nuisance. Sorry. But, damn! So first off, we get the answer as to why the Seaborn are even free and are outside of the laboratory. Well, it's because of that guy. That guy had to poke deeper and deeper and deeper. And no one told him that eventually if you poke too much, the preservative can break. But yeah, anyway. Sorry, that was... God, why did I go there? But yeah, anyway, the guy was searching for stuff, and oh boy did he find something 200 years ago. Oh boy did he find something. So essentially he found Karula Arbor, and he found, so the laboratory essentially, found the confined body of a genetically modified Faramut that was supposed to have some purpose, as said there. It was supposed to be like a biological arc, essentially, it seems, but yeah, that thing was so altered that the little creatures essentially inside of a Faramut that are just living in symbiosis essentially became the Seaborn that we know today, and they're literally just going around as the big guy is, and now we have it confirmed that the big guy is actually just sleeping. Probably sleeping, not brain dead. I think the perception of the big thing essentially so far was that it was brain dead, but it was essentially keeping itself alive, and this part is still true. It is basically keeping itself alive by extending its like appendage, almost like roots of a tree, extending it down into the essentially into the mantle of the and the core of the planet, and feeding itself essentially on geothermal energy, and that way keeping its enormous body alive. But at the same time, the Seaborn, the little creatures that are stemming from it, essentially all Seaborn are offsprings of a Faramut, weirdly enough, or parts of it essentially, and they're just going around collecting biomaterial and bringing it back to the Big Daddy to make it stronger. Like our dear buddy, the Seaborn Martus, who looks amazing and creepy at the same time. Hope you enjoyed that one, by the way. Essentially are trying to get the Seaborn to a point of evolution, of the next step of evolution, essentially, which, funnily enough, is actually depicted in ending 4 of IS-3. That is ending 4, essentially the next step of evolution for the Seaborn and their true purpose to some degree. But only when controlled through, well, someone who is not a absolute dickhead. But yeah, anyway, IS-3 ending 4, everybody. Go and watch that. And yeah, so... Oh, and also speaking of IS-3, I've already, I think, mentioned it at some point somewhere, but you're gonna probably hear me in the clips as well if I don't forget to put that portion of the clip in. When he was mentioning, when Martus was mentioning the Seaborn that were essentially a lookout, waiting for the sky and to something to happen to the barrier in the sky, and pretty much in Mizuki's monthly addition to IS-3, his full file that gets added in there, his 3 individual stories, the third story, and this is the one that I always said is the actual canonical one of actual canonical events, because that one is depicting a just regular event where Mizuki is observing like 2 Seaborn that are like essentially calcified against a cliff next to the sea and are just pointing at the sky and looking at it. And in the meantime, at the same time, the barrier break happens over in Lone Trail in 3 Mounts, and Mizuki gets distracted for a moment, looking away from the 2 Seaborn, and when he looks back, the 2 of them are gone because they saw what happened and they are bringing the message back. So this connects back to it. that little mini story connects back to what Martus was saying here, essentially, that they were waiting and looking for a sign. So these new evolutions and everything are kind of like they were essentially catalyzed by this new development with the sky. The Seaborn are getting ready for their next departure. They want out. They want the hell out. And yeah, there we go. That's that. We also get a confirmation on something very interesting. I think you guys also brought it up a couple of times, and some people I think as well were speculating that there might have been like a ring around the planet at some point, and it seems that is true. It wasn't a natural ring, but the guy literally said there was a ring. There was a ring, but it's a derelict now. It's gone. So that is probably the derelict field from, I would say from, what's it called? From the preview trailer 4, in that one shot, probably. Just remnants of the ring, just floating in there. Okay. Good stuff connecting back to shit. I love it. And yeah, also screw you, Martus, for unleashing the Seaborn. Screw you, buddy. You unleashed hell. The guy basically unleashed the Tyranids. The guy basically unleashed the Warhammer 40k Tyranids upon not just this world, but if the Seaborn don't get brought under control, and again, even though it was through other means in the ending of IS-4, IS-3 ending 4, there was still a peaceful solution, even though that peaceful solution was several thousand years in the making. But it can still happen. I don't know what will happen, but I don't think in this current time and space we're gonna be having a kumbaya, my lord, around a campfire with Seaborn and roasting marshmallows. This will end one way or the other, and I think the only way it's gonna end is literally to eradicate the giant body of that Faramut. Because if they, I mean, this is just logical thinking. If their whole programming is to feed the big body, if you actually just get rid of the big body in some way, wouldn't that just brick their programming, essentially? They wouldn't have to do that anymore. They wouldn't be, like... Well, forced is a weird way in their concept to say, but essentially they wouldn't be pulled anymore to do that. I wonder how they would behave then. I actually wonder how they would behave if there is a means to get rid of the Faramut that they all come from. And what would happen to the Seaborn in general? Would they just be aimless little creatures not knowing what to do? Since they don't have like a subconscious pull towards something anymore? Would be an interesting thing. That thing needs to go away. That thing needs to go away, definitely. And yeah, the final thing, the city is on the surface now. So, that's interesting. Oh boy. Also, very interesting concepts with the cities. They can just jettison certain parts out of their whole thing. That is kind of neat. Not gonna lie, that is kind of neat. But yeah, we're on the surface now, so I do wonder how it's gonna end. But that's gonna be for next time. From what I've seen in the like completion for the chapter and stuff, there's only 8 and 9 left apparently, for stages at least, and then there is probably just a cutscene at the end. So yeah, we'll see how that is gonna run, but that will be for next time, and I will definitely finish this before the timer runs out on this event. I'm definitely finishing this, gonna throw myself immediately tomorrow into work after this goes out, just to get this done. But yeah, interesting shit, interesting lore. This event is so full of lore, I don't even know. I just noticed I just literally spent 10 minutes talking about the goddamn stuff that was revealed here. That is a sign that it's interesting, right? But yeah, anyway, thank you very much for listening and watching. Apologies for the quite a ramble here at the end. Wasn't planned, but I had to say stuff. When it's interesting, I do have to say shit. And hopefully you guys enjoyed. And I will see you in the finale of this event story, and we'll see how it ends. Until then, thank you very much. And please consider leaving a like on the video, it would help out a lot. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. And if you want to help out even more, you can join a membership. And as always, no video will be behind one of the memberships. It is purely there just to support me, my work, and the channel. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to the members that are already there and supporting. And I will see you all in the next part. Until then, bye-bye.
You? Young man, you saw none of this. You have no reason to complicate things.
What are you, a Jedi?
You haven't seen anything.
Waves arm, walks away. He actually walked away! Oh, I'm gonna die. Oh, I'm gonna die. Oh, I choked on my own spit. Ooh. Air. I need air. Whew.
I have seen through the eyes of we many who have ventured on land.
And there it is. There it is. The little bit that was mentioned in the third part of the Mizuki story for the monthly edition in IS3. Literally, that whole story was Mizuki saw 2 Seaborn calcified against the shore while Rhode Island was somewhere nearby. He was observing them, then noticed that a giant beam opened a barrier in the background. He was distracted by that for a second. The moment he looked back at the 2 Seaborn, they were gonzo, delivering a message back to their kind. And it's linking back together. There we go. Nice.
There I saw.
Ooh. 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 Wait, some massive thing sleeping in the shadow of the Karula tree. Yep, the first one, the one that is brain dead, I believe, but its body is still growing because it's siphoning energy from like geothermal vents and is essentially perpetually just renewing its cells. Oh shit. Oh, you motherfuckers. you borrowed the outer layer of the design from what was that movie called? What was that sci-fi movie called Under the Sea from like the 90s? Was it The Abyss? When that alien ship surfaces on the surface at the end. It had the same ridges like this thing.